Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this is episode 72, one of our Teacher Spotlight episodes. These Teacher Spotlight episodes were one of the first ideas when I thought about the Music Ed Matters podcast. There are so many fantastic teachers out there listening, and I want to spotlight them. One of those teachers is longtime Music Ed Matters listener, Michelle Ross. Now, Michelle and I met because she actually joined Patreon in the early days with the very first summer PD week, and then messaged me and said thank you. And we started emailing back and forth, and we finally met about a year later and we're fast friends. Y'all, Michelle is about to drop so many ideas for you. Please make sure you have a piece of paper and a pencil or pen ready to take notes, because we're going to talk about Michelle and what her successes, struggles, and all sorts of things that she has uncovered in her first 5 years of teaching. She has a really cool story to bring to you, and I really think you're going to get a lot out of it. It was so much fun talking to Michelle. This episode was brought to you by our friends at the Kinnison Choral Company, and I know they also want you to get the most out of rehearsal. So go to emilybirch.org/sponsors, click the KCC logo, and go check out everything they have to offer. You're going to love what they have for you. Without further ado, a teacher spotlight on my dear friend, middle and high school teacher, Michelle Ross. Today on the Music Ed Matters podcast, we have a teacher spotlight with my dear friend, Michelle Ross. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Emmy. Nice to see you this morning.
It is so nice. We are doing this recording on Monday, a holiday, Labor Day, and I'm thrilled to introduce the listeners to you. You are one of the most dynamic and fun friends. Y'all, we met because of Podcast Land, and we're like, what do you call us? Fake friends? We were fake friends for a hot second.
We were fake friends before, when you did not know who I was, and yet you were like one of my besties, you know. So I'm glad to know that you know my name.
Yeah.
So yes.
Y'all, Michelle would send, she was actually one of the great people that, when you like and review a podcast, it does matter. So she would like and review, she would send comments through the Patreon page, and we would message back and forth, having never met. And then we met, and it was like we were destined to be friends. And she has curly hair, which makes me feel really welcome.
That's right. I know. When I first saw, even on your podcast thing, you know how you have that happy picture of you and it's all curly? I thought, oh, we are
curly hair people unite. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, tell the listeners, who is Michelle Ross?
Sure. I'm happy to do that. So yeah, my name is Michelle Ross. I live in Clemson, South Carolina right now with my family, my husband, and my 3 kids. But I'm actually from the West. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and then moved to Laramie, Wyoming when I was in high school. I grew up mainly playing the piano. That was my first entrance into the music world from a very young age, but then jumped in middle school and high school into chorus. Actually, we call it choir in the West. I've been training myself. You can tell I've been here long enough, because over here in the Southeast, they call it the chorus. But anyway, right from the start, I always knew music was the thing I would do. There was nothing else for me in school and in life, for sure. I was always music, but mainly piano in my kind of scholar land. And so I loved being in choirs in both school and church. But it was really when we started looking into colleges for me, undergraduate programs, that I used my piano as a way to get into it. I remember you talking about a similar thing with you, Emmy. So yeah, I got a scholarship in piano performance for my first place that I went to undergrad. I went to BYU, Hawaii. And it wasn't until I got there that I found out that there was no music education program. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher and a chorus teacher or choir teacher, but piano was just the avenue. So, so I spent a year in Hawaii and did my piano things, and then came home to Wyoming, did a year there with a more traditional music education program. And then I got married and we moved to Seattle, which is where I finished my education. So I always tell my children who are now looking into colleges, do not do it how I did. There's a few ways of doing undergraduate work, and you don't need to go to 3 different places. But I did finish my education at the University of Washington in Seattle. And really the last 2 years, so I ended up going to my undergrad program for 5 years. And the last 2 years were pretty pretty specific to music ed, teaching kids about music, which was wonderful. I felt super equipped. I felt super powered. And then I graduated, and then I had a child. I had my first son, Zane, and my life just shifted entirely. My husband was a successful engineer, and Zane just took everything that I had. And so I decided early on that I would set my music education aside, at least in the traditional sense, in the public school teaching way. And I would just go ahead and give motherhood my full-time energy. And it did. It took everything I got. It still does, my goodness. But had Zane, and then we moved to Idaho. I had a daughter named Annie. We moved to Florida so my husband could get his PhD. And I had my third child, Soren. And then now here we are in Clemson. My husband teaches at Clemson University. And I found myself all along the way, definitely being involved in community choruses and church choirs and things like that. Even at the University of Florida, I accompanied for a vocalist and a trombonist, and I was in an early music ensemble. So I dabbled, but I never really could figure out how to put full-time mothering and full-time teaching together. I just couldn't do it. So I paused. And then my sweet little Soren is my third child. When he got to kindergarten in 2017 is when I decided to just dive back in. And luckily there was an opening in a little school in my district, just a little north of Clemson, called Liberty. And I started as the middle school teacher, chorus just half-time for half a year, and then grabbed the high school position as well. So now I teach at Liberty Middle and High full-time. It's crazy. And I still have these children and this husband, and our life is crazy.
You're like a brand new teacher.
I am. I'm a brand new teacher, but I'm basically older than most of my students' parents. So that was like my best thing, is when I first rolled in, nobody knew I was new. I don't even think the kids still know for sure, because and there is so much wisdom that you glean along the way, just with life experiences and all those things. And so I do feel very equipped to mother and love these children, which is what I think I was hired to do, actually. However, I have felt very much like a new struggling teacher in the past almost 5 years now. I've been doing it for almost 5 years.
I know this. Okay, we're going to dive into some of those successes and struggles and strategies in a second. But I want to go back for anyone who's listening that's interested in music or pursuing a music degree. You keep telling your kids don't do college like you did. What was the biggest struggle with changing schools all the time, and why would you encourage people to pick one and stick to it?
Well, that's a good question. I think for me, it was understand what you want to do with, and I know that all kids don't have that ability, but like early on, I always knew I wanted to teach choir, always, but I didn't understand the process. I didn't understand that there were different avenues within a music school. I didn't understand that if I got in with my piano scholarship, then I would be required to fill all of this practice time with my own instrument, and then as well accompanying other people, and that there was just no space in there for instance, taking voice lessons myself. I never did that because I always was just a pianist. And so all of the vocal ped that you learn as an undergraduate voice student, I just didn't get. We dabbled in it with our, little bit of education classes about it, but it was so focused piano for me because it was part of my scholarship that I didn't feel like I had the time or the power to ask for help in other ways. And also I wasn't brave enough. I didn't think I had the ability with my voice, even though I wanted to teach voice, at least in the choral classroom. I didn't feel empowered to ask. So that's where I would tell, especially music kids, from the very beginning, go ahead and speak your voice. Talk about what it is that you're interested in doing at the end, and making sure that your education is balanced out. It wasn't until I got to the University of Washington for my 4th and 5th year of that, and I ended up getting a double bachelor's at the end, Bachelor's of Arts and Bachelor's of Music. But it wasn't until then that I finally got to kind of move aside my piano And all of the time that it takes and all the juries, they didn't require that anymore. And it was like, oh, I could breathe. I had time. I could learn about the actual art. That's where I started the conducting classes. That's where I learned about education and, classroom management and behavior. So that was really, I feel like where my education began. And I wish I could have started there, but I don't know that I would have been brave enough to go and find that program. And that's why, I would tell kids now, like, what is your end goal? Go ahead and look around and make sure that the places you are interested in offer what you want at the end.
And I love what you said, be brave enough to ask, be brave enough to speak what your goal is. Even though your goal got put on hold so you could be a mom, which was totally awesome, you're now living this goal that you had X number of years ago.
Yes, I am. It feels very much kind of full circle for me. I always knew I wanted to do it. And maybe now I'm a little bit more equipped because I do find that I have a voice. I'm more able to advocate for my own needs and, with coworkers or with my colleagues in and out of the music department, and also with my administrators. They have been lovely. And I think that myself now, 20 years after graduating, it's not quite that long. My son is about to be 17. So, 16 years after that, I do feel like I am able to voice what I need more, which is great.
So we hear so many of the things that are really settling in nicely for you. You're able to love on your kids. You have a middle school and high school program. So you're your own feeder. You're in the same county that your family lives in, which is beautiful. Tell us, let's go through some of these successes, struggles, and strategies that you and I have been talking about nonstop. I'm so excited to share. So let's start from the beginning. What's one of the first ones?
Well, and this came about because last year, kind of ending my school year, and we have to take into consideration that we had COVID and that we had to quarantine and all of that, and there's a lot of other kind of stresses and things that I just don't have control over, right? So leaving those aside, at the end of last year, I took some time and just wrote down some of the things that I myself was still having a hard time on a daily basis in my own classroom. And I came down with basically 3 specific ones. One was just needing more order in the classroom. For someone like me who claims to have safety as her first concern, that I want, both physically safe, but also mentally and psychologically safe. I want my classroom to be a place of rest and of safety and sanctuary. Is that it? Anyway, for having that. My class was also a little wild, especially in the middle school. Okay. The high schoolers, it's really a lot different. But so let's kind of talk in the middle school world for a while. I am kind of a firm believer in wanting to have the children's personalities be able to stay out. I don't want to dampen them down, because I feel like if I say, stop, okay, start, we need to sing, like bring it in. I'm much more wanting them to be themselves, to be playful, and then to bring that into the music. However, things were a little crazy, and we didn't start the year right. I didn't have a lot of great procedures and expectations placed. We didn't even have a classroom at the beginning of last fall. We sang outside for a few days, and then we were in a math classroom because the choir classroom was big enough to put a science cohort in it. And so, there were just things that were beyond my control, but it led to kind of like, so one of the things that we learned at PD Week this summer with your dear Cuffy Sullivan, who's kind of your organizational guru, right?
She's our director of operations for my choir. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I remember hearing her on your podcast years and years ago, right? Well, I don't mean
very beginning.
I mean eons ago.
Yeah, early episode.
So impressed. Yeah, so impressed with her. But she gave us a session about organizing and front loading all kinds of things, from parent emails to how you structure your classroom, to volunteers, to all these things. And I kind of knew that I needed to have that ready, but with Cuffy, she was just like, listen, this is how you do it, I was like,
Yes.
okay, great. So as I came home from that, and of course I've been thinking about it all summer, but yes, I really set some clear expectations and procedures back in place. And I want to tell you about a few of them just in case there are other people like that out. We also started our year crazy busy. Crazy early. Our first day was like August 6th or something. So we have now been going, for a full month. But the first thing that I did that was last year, a hurdle all year, was attendance. I'm not one who wants to take attendance. I did try the number system one time, but there was always kids who weren't here, and especially with COVID. So what I did was, and I found this in a book, it's like the creative or the classroom management book. There's these whiteboards with just magnets with their names on it. And so I have a whiteboard that has my 6th grade, my 7th grade, and my 8th grade. And as the kids come in, there's little notes with their names on them. They just pull their name off of the magnet board and put it in a bucket. And from there, then they would come and pick up their folders. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But all of a sudden now when the bell rings, I can look over at the whiteboard and there's 4 or 5, hopefully not, but because of COVID and quarantine and things, that out of my 30 kids, there's 4 or 5 notes still left on there. And I can just quickly walk over while I'm checking some other things and get it in my brain who is absent or not, you know what I mean? And that's been a huge win. The kids respect the notes. They only take their own somehow, and they put them in the right places. And then as a job, I can ask someone who's doing a good job that day, or maybe that needs a redirect. I can say, hey, can you go and put those notes back up for me? So that's been a huge win for me, attendance wise. And then the other thing that's been really great is I got colored folders, and then I've created this choir notebook that's just basically 8.5 by 11 papers folded in half with a cardstock cover that say chorus notebook, quarter 1. And then when you open it up, it's week 1, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Turn the next page, week 2, and then week 3. That's in their folder, as well as a pencil and their music. Okay. And so they put their note, or they take their note off the board, they go and grab their folder, sit in their seat, and then there's like a 2 or 3 minute little music theory thing on the board, along with the agenda for the day. But that way, even right as the bell is ringing, most kids should be in their seats with their pencils. And I mean, the little spaces are this big. It's very small. It's draw these 4 notes, to get them trained how to write these, or, write this 4-beat phrase. We're now to that point where they're writing it. And then later we come in and write how you count the rhythm or whatever. And one other really great thing that has worked for me just in the last couple of weeks is, and this seems silly for middle school, but it has worked so well, is as the bell is ringing and the kids that are in their seats doing what they're supposed to at the time, I just have these little tiny stickers and I come and just walk around. I don't say a word, but I put a little sticker on their notebook. And then when there are 3 stickers, they get to come and get a little treat, a little Jolly Rancher.
Nice.
Yeah, because there's always kids coming in late and bumbling, and we have to have procedures about that. Like if you're tardy, you just come in quietly. But I never could figure out how to reward the kids that were doing the right thing, and also try and motivate those kids. And man, token system, I definitely learned that 1,000 years ago in Washington, that token systems work for kids. And so these 3 little stickers, and then they can go grab a Jolly Rancher. It's worked so well. So yes, I feel like my classroom right now, night and day difference, because there are clear entry things, and then we can move right into the rehearsal. And then we have, some pretty simple exit strategies too, where I say, kids with the pink folders, go put your stuff away and then grab your bags. Okay, now the green folders. And also I let the children choose what color they wanted. That seemed to make a big difference right at the beginning of the year. They could choose their folder color day 1. It felt like their own. And now I have them kind of grouped in different things. If I want to have, the blue folders do something, that's another way to put them into smaller groups really quickly.
Lots of differentiation opportunities. Yes. Man, it sounds like you have taken on so many big, huge hurdles and made a struggle a success. You have a really great procedure for beginning and end. That's fabulous.
Well, it's made all the difference. And I think that's when Cuffy was telling us, like, you are doing this for yourself. You are putting money in the bank that you're going to be able to use later. I have felt that for sure. My anxiety level is lower. I think the kids feel safer in there. They know what to expect. They know how to get rewarded, and then they know how we're going to leave. Oh, I should say one other thing I did that's really helped me is I've given myself on my phone a 4-minute warning. My alarm goes off, and when my little buzz on my watch goes off, I know to stop and to pack up. I don't even tell the kids, but I can just sense that it's,
feel it.
Time to be over. And I think the kids have appreciated that. I grew up thinking you got to go bell to bell, and so I really resisted with that like pack up time, but no longer. I'm a major believer in it now. It just has this calming effect. And then even we can talk a little tiny bit at the end if everybody's still calm, or I can play a little exit game, a little rhythm, something. And so yay, Cuffy. Thank you for
Yay. No, thank you for sharing. We get a lot of questions, especially with early teachers, on how do you get order in your classroom, and having procedures at the beginning and the end seems like something that would just happen naturally, but you have to put the time and effort into it and find. What I love is specifically this middle school group, you gave them the choice to choose their color. You're giving them the choice to make the decision to sit in the seat and get the sticker. There's so many middle school based decisions, but middle schoolers aren't adults. They are.
Oh no, they're just,
they need just as much love and structure, but a little bit of choice in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I even think them being able to find their own name, there's something really owner thing about that. That's, I am here and put this down, and I did, I wondered, would they abuse this? Would there just has not been. It's been wonderful. And then they all want to they all want that job. In fact, this weekend, I made a whole other whiteboard that's the job chart now. I wrote at the top, I need help, which is, they all know I need help. And now kids who are doing well, I can go put their name on the board as a helper. And so then when the notes, because I always have kids, can I do this? Can I do this? And I can now just go look at the board and say, oh, so-and-so's been awesome. They can help me with this. Or like I said before, man, I have a lot of wiggly boys. And that's so hard to deal with. And it's actually my next question for you, because it's one of my struggles is what to do after you, or when you still have these kids that come in later, that once they sit, they just can't quite figure it out, and I know that there's like the vicinity, get to them, talking quietly with them, trying to disarm any kind of, situation where we might feel like we're at odds with them. And of course, giving them jobs has been something that I can do. Go grab the pencils, or, hey, can you pass this out for me? Or can you go do this little thing? So that's helpful.
Cornelia Yarborough back at LSU, she's now retired, always she taught our intro to music ed class. And I will never forget, she had some type of pithy acronym, which I will never remember, but her acting out these acronyms of how to diffuse, I will always remember it. And so, the first thing is ignoring it. How long can you ignore it before, because a lot of times it is just an intention thing. And then for the proximity thing versus, especially with the wiggly boys, I love moving the guys. Oh, well, I'm a huge proponent in middle school of having like the TB ensemble and the SA ensemble, having it by voice part. Because I think it helps so much in the voice transition. But if you can't do that, where can you put the person who needs a little more wiggle, where they're not in the very front? Because obviously everyone's looking at them and they know it. And if they're in the back, no one's looking at them. So they have to do even more and be even louder to get up. So where can you put them? It's such a happy medium where they're kind of in everyone's periphery, but not in the center. So I have found sometimes with the most wiggly, the far front corner seat is actually better than that seat right in front of me.
I'm going to try that like on Tuesday. I mean, first of all, I have to get the new seating chart approved because of COVID and all that stuff. But I think after this 4-day weekend, it'll go. That's such a great idea. Right now, my 2 wigglies are right in the front and center. And I think it drives us all batty. But I don't want to like reward them by putting them,
no,
somewhere
they don't need
else.
to be in the back. But if they're on the corners, so it's the ignore, the proximity, the redirect. So giving them some type, I've had a couple wigglies where I'll give them like a pack of cards or a jar of sticks. And I'll set a timer, and every time my timer goes off, they get to take something out of the stick individually, and that might be take a lap around the room, or drop and give me push-ups, or stand on one foot for 20 seconds. And like it becomes their own thing.
Oh, that's so awesome.
But just
Oh
like
my
I'm a wiggler. Like I record all of my episodes on a bouncy ball because I know that if I start to get distracted, which is not because you're not interesting, it's just
For sure.
ADHD stuff, it helps me. So I'm a wiggler myself. If the jar doesn't work, having like color coded, this is something that I got from working with students with special needs, but it becomes really helpful for wiggles. You have yellow cards and red cards. So I got to keep all the red cards. And they had a stack of yellow cards. And the yellow cards would be like, if something was, hey, that's a warning, I'd just say yellow card. And they would know that they had a stack of yellow and they had to move it. If they made it to the end of class with yellows still left on the correct side, they got some type of like bonus walk around the class, or they got something that's helping them build, because the whole point of behavior modification is helping them find the internal reward, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So eventually they want to not be, and if they've moved too many yellows, I'll give them a red and it stops the whole day. Then that means if you get a red, that's it. You are done.
And that is so helpful. I have these 2 or 3 in mind that I know they are not doing this behavior on purpose. It's not that. And
poor dudes and their brains growing and hormones and Lord above, there is so much going on.
Sure. And I think, you could be in any classroom and you can take a student's behavior as a direct insult, as a direct attack. And that's not the right way to do it, and as a newer teacher who is a little less sure of ourselves, we tend to do that at first. And that's something I've really had to realize is like, and I think I heard this on one of your podcasts, that like, I am only a very small supporting cast member of this child's life. They are the star and I am a very small piece. And so, yeah, I really like that idea of kind of giving them kind of self-regulatory things like here's your stack, because I know you're not doing this on purpose, but I got to give you a little warning here. I got to give you a little warning here.
Because it also then becomes annoying to the rest of the group if you're constantly giving all the attention. I say you can't give 100% to the 1%. And like they do need a little extra. But especially with some of the wiggles, just what do you need? What would be helpful to you? What, do you want a drink of water? Is it like, do you just need to take a 2-minute lap? Like,
right.
I love
that. I mean, I love you're coming to the students saying, what can I do to help you? What's going on? How can I help you? As opposed to knock it off, where but it's tricky, right? In the classroom where we are so going.
And there's so many other people in the room. Also, if you do this, like I highly encourage behavior contracts where they write up their contract with you, and I let all the students do that so it becomes even. So after the first week, we write each other a contract. Like they have their contract for me, which is the quote syllabus. And then what is your contract with me? So here's what I promise to give you. What are you promising? And then they sign it, and we just have a folder of contracts. And so when I was in the middle school teaching, if someone was breaking their contract, I would send them to go read their contract. Hey, go read your contract. Do you need to rewrite it? Is something not working?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That is so awesome, because it can be their contract. Like that.
And every contract's different.
Right. Hey, go read yours. Not just go read the syllabus and see what your consequence is or whatever, Yeah, I really like that idea. If there's one thing I could communicate, like kind of a learning thing that I've had in the last couple of years is like, every child is different and every child deserves our one-on-one, love. And I am often overwhelmed by that truth that they all just need some love and security. And I don't know quite how to do it, but I almost think, and that was a question I had for you right here, is how do I do this correction, this behavior correction, as a path forward with the student and not as a divider with the student. And so I love those ideas, hey, go look at your contract. Go ahead and look at mine too. Am I doing everything that I said, that I needed you to do? And I've said that with a couple of these is, I'm not sure I directed you well enough on that. Let me try again and see if you can do a better job, But I struggle in what's the next step? And I don't necessarily want to call home. I don't necessarily want to give the kid lunch detention and say, I'm done with you.
Because what does that teach them?
I would really like, nothing. It just, it puts chorus or choir back in that other place that's not safe. It's not a
And we're
safe
such a
place.
special thing.
Yes.
A book that you should totally read. So Madsen wrote this book, Teaching Discipline, and dynamite book, just tons of examples, it's one of those books I reference all the time.
Mm.
And it is
You
just,
know, that one rings a bell. I might even
Mhm.
have that in my
It's so
in
good. It's right
stuff.
behind me on the shelf. I know exactly
Good.
where it
It's
is. Like
worth
I can see
revisiting.
it in my
Yeah.
blue screen. I think that's another good book too, because there are some caveats. Like, when are you giving them too much attention and it's not paying off? When do you
Sure.
have to have I just had to have the hard conversation with a 15-year-old
You did.
a little bit ago because
Okay.
it was very rude. It was the maturity level of a kindergartner, but
Mhm.
I let it go and redirected, and I did a ton of ignoring. We still got through the rehearsal plan.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I individually called mom to say, hey, what's going on? I'm really concerned. Is everything all right?
Well, and
Then set
oh,
up a
I mean, that's so
one-on-one.
great. That's just what I was going to ask you too, is what's the vocabulary you use if you do have to call home? What is that vocabulary? So say again what you said. You said, what's
Okay,
going on?
so is everything okay? What's going on?
Is
How can
everything
I
okay?
support? But this is a good question. We do role play in our methods classes that I teach for
Okay.
these phone calls. We do
Ah,
scenarios, and then they have to role play with each other calling home, because it depends on how well do you know the parent, how
mhm,
well do you know the student, and how well do you know the situation. So
mhm,
is there something at home that could be causing issues?
mhm, mhm.
Is the parent involved, or is the parent not involved? Which parent are you calling? Why
Right.
did you choose that parent? Are you
Mhm.
calling that parent at home, at work, on their cell phone? In
Yeah.
what situation is that parent when you call? So
Right.
I
Right.
always start with, hey, I'm so and so, I teach so and so, such and such.
Mhm.
Nothing is wrong, making sure there is no
Right.
emergency.
Mhm.
There were some things today, and I want to be the best teacher for your kid. Can we just
Mhm.
talk about what's going on and let me know how I can help?
Ah,
And
ah,
then if you start with that, the
yeah.
defensive never has to come up. Now, I say that, and I still have been yelled at a lot.
Well, thank you. That's good to know. But remember, I'm like a grown up now. So maybe my 21-year-old self couldn't have handled that. But,
Yes.
now I do say, and I think that there's some value in that, even in trying to, letting myself know I can handle this. I can
Hmm.
handle it. And again, I have to see it as that it's coming from a place of love from that
Hmm.
parent, and yeah, it's not about me. It's not about
Mm-mm.
me.
It's not about you. It's what can we do to find the best resources for that student. And then last thing, just make sure you document. Like, a lot of the
Right.
examples I'm giving you right now, like the student I called, that's a community choir that I've worked with this kid for a very long time. I know the parents very well. It's a
Mhm.
different situation than it's the first year teaching this kid, and you think you might have them all the way through 12th grade. You're going
Right.
to have a
Right.
different relationship calling a 6th or 7th grader versus calling an 11th or 12th grader.
That's very true, isn't it? Yeah, and know how to handle those situations differently.
Mm-hmm.
A
Those different.
first conversation is different than a 3 or 4 years down the line
And you
conversation.
want to make sure you document them the whole time, just in case something was misconceived or it was a different story that was told at home versus what you called and asked
Sure,
about. Because
sure.
that happens, and we
Mhm.
all have different lived experiences. Malcolm Gladwell's revisionist history
Oh, sure, sure. Uh-huh,
podcast, so
uh-huh.
good, but talks about the failures of the human memory.
Yes.
Because there
Mhm.
are so many. Oh, this is only the first of the struggles. Can we look at
I
the
know, we
second
gotta
one?
we gotta keep
No, this
rolling.
is
Yeah, we gotta keep
great.
going.
Great
Well, yeah.
information.
I know. I have this is exactly what I was hoping for, is you giving those specific things. So thank you. The next struggle that I had was just, and this is specifically middle school again, is trying to in my attention getters and also in my warm-ups to like get the kids up and out of their seats or get them into our focused and having fun without having it be too wild or too silly or too whatever.
Hmm.
And I did kind of roll in thinking that the kids would think I was awesome 100% of the time, and everything I would ever do, they would just roll with. And I have definitely been given enough looks to now
Oh,
know.
I'm talking. You said roll with. I mean, like roll their eyes with. That's more like what
Yeah,
I.
I know, right? I know. Like, and so I have definitely been like taken down off my high horse, of thinking. And also, this is an area where I do feel like my life is completely different from my high schoolers in the morning to my middle schoolers in the afternoons right now. And so I go into the high school, and we were able to talk about posture and alignment in a very chill way. I've loved Bridget Sweet gave some really great body mapping courses during our PD, where I'm relearning where my head is over my spine and how that works with, the shoulders on down to the various hinges. Anyway, and as I have been discovering all this kind of vocal ped stuff, I've been able to teach my high schoolers, and man, the maturity level is just like, whoo. And then I eat my lunch and run to the middle school, and it's just like a different world. And so, I did want to highlight, just to kind of let people know how serious I am about my love for the podcast, the 2 podcasts, yours and then this other one, and I'll explain in just a minute. But I've literally gone from like feeling like I just had tunnel vision of like, when I was a kid, what were the warm-ups I liked? And then a long time ago, when there were warm-ups, in undergraduate, what did we do? But even that, in our choirs in college, we did warm-ups that were very different than the warm-ups we need to use for our little kids. And what I was finding was my kids just weren't making noise. And I would do stuff like, go, woo, and they'd go, like, nobody wants to do it. And I do think that has a little bit to do with the kids that I have that don't necessarily feel safe in their own lives. That hierarchy of needs from Maslow, that I have felt the reality of that if you are not, if you don't have a place to sleep at night, and if you haven't had breakfast, and if you don't have, then it's very difficult to take you on these other journeys, However, I think a lot of it also was, I was just a little too high-minded in my, okay, let's check our breath now and, do all this stuff. And so I have really appreciated all of these people that I've heard. And the 2 podcasts that I've heard it from is your podcast, Music Ed Matters, right? And then the other podcast is Chris Muntz's Choreolosophy.
Yeah, Chris.
I know, right? We can give him a shout out, because he is the reason I know you, because you were first on his
he was so helpful with me getting started. He was so willing to just like go for it. He's a great colleague.
Well, and that really is how I have felt from everyone, from both you guys as podcast hosts, but then all of these guests that come on. And I felt the same way. You and I both attended the Choreolosophy Con last spring, and I felt like all of the people that were in the room with us there wanted to collaborate, wanted to share what they had done and what they were successful with, And so I just want to just run through attention getters and warm-ups that I have loved, that I'm hoping someone who else is a new teacher, they can go, let me get my pencil right now and write these down, because they have been great. The first one comes from Dale Duncan, who's in the middle with Mr. D. He's in Atlanta somewhere, and he does this game called Forbidden Pattern, where every day you pick a different 3 solfege, different pattern, like do, re, do, and that's the forbidden pattern for the day. And it's like Simon Says, the kids just do what I do, except if I do the forbidden pattern, and then they can't do it. And if they say it out loud, then we clap for them, but I get the point. And if everything is silent on the forbidden pattern, then they get the point. And it's best to 3 every day, and they play against the other grades. And so it has been hands down the most successful thing for classroom management. When my administrators roll in, if everything's going a little wild, all I have to do is go do, 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 and the kids go do, 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 and like my admins are like, how can we do that in a science class? How can you get their attention so fast? So thank you, Dale Duncan. That has been great. It has also been a way now in my 8th grades to teach the semitones, like the do, di, do, and with the hand signs, as well as just moving up and down on the scale so much. And the kids just love it because of the competition. So that's a huge one. Also for online, I could do that when we had to do quarantine last year. If the kids would put on their screens, then we could still see them move their hands, even if I couldn't hear them. So even I could do forbidden pattern. And I think that was huge for the kids to have something from the regular classroom that we did. And then it was time. It took up time, which was helpful. They were still practicing all their wonderful hand signs, and we had fun. So yeah, that one is a huge one. The second one that I've done is Ryan Main.
Yeah, Ryan Main. He was just on the podcast a couple weeks ago. He was so much fun. But he was on the podcast as composer Ryan Main. And y'all, if you don't know, educator Ryan Main
Yes.
So awesome.
Well, and we learned that at the Chorosophy Con. And then, yeah. And another thing, I mean, my 7th graders, burp, burp, even the ones who think I'm the dorkiest of dork, if I go over them and go, murp, murp, they go, murp, murp. You know, I mean, it's just like a way that, again, I can like, and we're the Falcons. And so Ryan Main suggested going, caw, which I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And sure enough, I go, caw, and all the kids go, caw, and the new ones look around like, what are we doing? Okay, you know, but they're in. I think it's been a great way to like bring the group together, and then we make baby eagles, and we're not eagles, sevens, we're falcons, but you know what I mean. So that's been a great one. 1,000 years ago, you had Vic Oakes on.
He was one of the first 5 episodes. Home Slice was believing in the project before
yes,
my audio was any good.
I think he is the reason why I joined your Patreon, I think because of your PD weekend. And you had him, and then the gal who we know so well for all of the girl voice changing.
Yeah, Lynn Gackle.
Thank you, Lynn Gackle. Both of those, I wanted to listen so much to what they had to say that I was like, oh, that is worth my $3 a month there.
Oh,
right? And you had just barely started, so I didn't feel too bad. But Vic talked about stormtrooper noises. Pew, 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 pew. And that has been life-changing from middle school all the way up to high school. If I have a boy who can't match a pitch, I'll say, sing this note, and he'll go, and I'll go, pew, pew, and he'll go, pew, pew, like right on the note. Or up here, pew, pew. Or even, if I can't get a girl out of just her kind of talky voice, we go up, and then we go up, and then we go up. So yes, stormtrooper noises are like crazy. There's this one, maybe we don't have to go through all of these, but the one that I took from just a YouTube, Ashley Delaney, and I think a husband, Nathan Dame. They do this thing. Get ready. This is like the
I'm
visual
so excited.
where you go to the right person, you go side, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, forward, 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 back, back, back. And then you go a little faster. Side, 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 up, down, up, down. Oops, I didn't do that right. I did up, down, side, but you get it. Anyway.
I'm doing the shoulder dance with you. This is so much fun.
You on your bouncy ball. Look at that. I love it. No, I mean, it is. And the boys and the girls do it. And then you all, and you can hear the quiet at the end of it. So that's been a great one. We do it without vocal things. We just do the little bit. Yeah. And it kind of gets them moving. Even the ones who don't want to move their bodies, they will do it. Your very latest guest talked about lip trills, which right now, COVID, I think we have to just put that one on pause, but just that. And I've been trying to talk to the kids about how easy it's supposed to be. Whoop, sweet, wow. But for some reason, it feels a little bit less goofy than wee or ooh, or any of those. So if I'm feeling like a group particularly doesn't want to play that day, then I can do that. The solfege slide, right? From Maria Ellis, our friend.
La like a lobster. La, la, la.
I know. I love that. She's another friend that
I really just want a shirt that says la like a lobster with sparkles everywhere on it. La like a lobster. La, la, la.
Yeah, I know. And my 16-year-old, when I was showing my own children that, he was like, that's pretty cool. And I was like, oh my heavens, if he thinks it's cool, we're going to be fine, And I just heard on Chris's last podcast about, from JD Frizzell or Frizzle, about making crazy sounds. And instead of it coming from me and then having the kids do me, having a kid make a crazy sound and then another one, and just the idea of, our voices need to be played with. Our voices need to, come out and so, Emmy, I'm ready to hear a couple more from you of your favorites, but let me say one more that really has helped my high school like crazy. And it's from Chris Muntz. And he straight up said, if your kids don't sing loud, it's your fault. And I was like, listening in my car going, what do you mean, Chris? And the idea of the coordinated onset was a new concept for me as a piano major who didn't ever, take voice, learning that your brain has to talk to your vocal cords at the same time as your breath is coming through. And, the idea of hitting a baseball or throwing or something like that. I say ping. Can we get a little more ping in it? And even connecting that to the when I have kids just singing like this, then I say, can we energize that breath and put some more ping in it? And it's been life-changing for them, for sure, without me saying, sing louder, please sing louder. So thank you. Shout out to Chris. Keep telling me what I'm doing wrong, Chris, because I'll take it.
Yes.
All the time.
Oh, he's so good at all that. These are great. I'm going to make sure that we have some of these available to the listener. I'll put a link up so they can access a lot of these ideas. I'm
As
a
well
huge,
as the people. Like, I absolutely want to give props to all the people that I've learned from.
yeah, you did
They're
a
my
great,
fake friends right now, right? They don't know me, but we're
fake friends,
great.
whatever. Y'all, you are great friends. The
Anyway,
only thing I would add to this list is getting them involved in the warm-up process. That has been a huge difference because my ensembles are middle and high together, my community ensembles.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
the high schoolers are always hungry for a challenge. And that has been the coolest thing is they've reached out and said, we want more, we want more, we want more. So they'll
Okay.
actually conduct the whole spring concert. I won't conduct anything at the
Really?
spring concert. So
Oh,
they start going through conducting classes in
okay.
January. And that
Okay.
way they're ready. So
With you
we
conducting
do
classes.
like a little high school only tutorial every week between rehearsals. And it's
Okay.
not singing, so we don't have to worry about COVID stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that makes it fun is you have to get them invested in the warm-up process. So they're able to send me their favorite song this week, and I love using their favorite song when it's clean enough
Right,
to
right.
design my own warm-ups. And so within this pop song, I'll find phrasing. So we're stretching and we're breathing and we're doing lip trills and all of these activities that you've been saying, I tie them into like quote choreographed pop songs that they've
Ah,
picked out.
that's
So
perfect.
as soon as
Yeah.
they're in their spot, I push play and
Okay.
we're doing or sometimes they'll say, "Hey, I really like this." I'm like, "Great, lead that warm up."
Mm.
Or if I don't know, "Hey, what's your favorite?" I teach a lot of rounds because
Okay.
then they can put all the pieces together. "What's your favorite round?" "Great, come lead it." "Okay, you're going to lead that section." And just getting them out in front and
Mhm.
taking ownership of, is that your best posture as a leader? And then the
Ah,
whole room lifts.
right.
So
So you
really
don't have to
taking
talk about the kids.
all
Yeah.
these great ideas you have and how
Mhm.
can you invest them back into the students as leaders?
It's so great, Emmy, because that's kind of the last hurdle and kind of my biggest hurdle. And that is spoon feeding versus scaffolding. And I
Mm-hmm.
heard that from Jaron Jorgensen and Christy McLean. They've been on
Such a good
yours, right? And they were,
episode.
yes, right. And they, they're in South Carolina. They're in rural South Carolina. So I really felt quite similar feelings to, I think, how they are feeling with just the kids that we are given to love on first. And I feel the love that they have for those kids, but then they've now taken it the step further.
Mm-hmm.
And they're teaching, they're empowering the students to then be lifelong learners and not just get it fed to them. I do feel like I I'm doing my job that I was hired to do, which is to love and to support and to encourage and to, all the things. But I remember early on, an admin came, dear friend, and observed me. And after it was over, he said, "That was great. You're going to burn out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is no way you can continue this level." And I was like, "I'm going to be fine," And then, of course, I feel that burnout at the end of the day, at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
semesters, and then definitely at the end of last year. And it was kind of right when we went to the Chorosophy Con and first met Jaron and Christy, where they said, "Hey, let's change it from this spoon feeding into something that's more scaffolding-ish,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe even we could do it switched. I have one success that I want to share, but it has to do more with just self-grading and a rubric, etc. But maybe you could talk more just about how, so in warm-ups, you empower your students by allowing some of the older ones to
Mm-hmm.
come and, be the leaders, and then you can
Or the
talk.
younger ones, sometimes you have to if you find an activity that maybe you've done this one round a dozen times and you
Okay.
know that one baby brand new fresh singer really knows that melody line, give them a small place where they're going to be successful to lead,
Ah,
or let
perfect.
them choose what's your favorite breath warm up that we
Mhm.
do. And I give
And
them time to
they
talk to their next right. They come lead it. So
do.
finding ways, I think the scaffolding is the perfect way to think of it. You model and then you empower, but you empower at different levels, knowing which students need what type of challenge, what student just needs to have an experience of leading. Or I have a couple students who are so stinking introverted, I've had to find books to read on how to be this extroverted with that type of introverted student. I've spent
Right, right.
tons of
You
time
are a bit of an expert.
I mean, I have a student who's in 11th grade. I've had this singer since they were in 2nd grade. And there was a transition period where I swear to goodness, they hated me. And so finally, I talked to mom after an event and was like, what am I doing? And mom was like, you're not doing anything wrong. Just bring it down. And so now I'm like, hey, can we talk? And I purposely stand multiple feet away than I normally would.
Sure.
I let them lead the conversation. But this singer doesn't need to be in front of the ensemble all the time to lead. For them to lead, it's simply putting them in the very back row and giving them that whole section and saying, give me a thumbs up if your section sang this part correctly. Ready, set, listen.
See, and I really need that too. I actually need those student leaders within the sections being my ears, because right now I think I miss a lot by that. So that's
student leaders will be able to tell you, and the ones that don't want to speak in front of the group. Now, there is times that I'm going to push the singer to get out of their comfort zone because that's good life skills.
But I feel like I do that even by asking them to stand up. You know what I mean? But yes, and so when to push, when to ask
But that's
more.
building the relationship and scaffolding that one particular singer. So I think that it's both the way that Jorgensen and McLean talk about it is with their college students. And I think a big way to look at this for me is from the lens of a student teaching supervisor. So when my students go from methods class out into the world of student teaching, which is it's not really authentic, but it's the best you can do in college, right?
Sure.
They have a rubric they're graded on, the same rubric that you're graded on as a South Carolina teacher, since I also teach at Aiken.
Yes, in South Carolina.
One of the questions is, where is the student involvement? Where's the student work? And it's hard to relate some of that 4.0 rubric to choir. And the way I say it is, your class was 90% you. Where can you get out of the way? Or you did all the work, you did all the lifting. Where's them?
Yes. Oh, Emmy, that is still the thing that I need the most work on, I think, is realizing that actually the success of these ensembles is going to be through taking myself out of them, where I kind of came in thinking I needed to save them or that I needed to lift or something. And, and maybe again, I've done that on like the low end of the Maslow triangle of being able to give them a safe place and, create that kind of a thing. But yeah, like we're never going to be able to get higher on that without me getting out of the way a little bit.
The best example, I think, for especially middle school is Evan Powers' episode. He talks about these sharing sessions that he does for the first, quote, concert of the year, and it's all student-led. And so I think for me, having the high schoolers conduct the spring concert, that's me giving up control. Of course I want to conduct that piece. I picked it. I love it. I want to be in the center hearing it before it goes out to the audience.
Well, not to mention, you really do feel like you have a little bit of a control, that you can...
But let go. And I think I talked about this in the most recent bonus episode on Patreon. But how much of it do you need to experiment and how much of it needs to be the same thing over and over? There's such a fine line between repetition for success and starting to kind of like experiment just a little and come back and experiment just a little and come back. That's life. You have to push a little here and there and experiment. You might try something and it falls flat on its face. But as Dr. Madsen says, you have to be 3 steps ahead of every possible situation. So what happens when you bring that kid up to lead the song and it bombs?
Sure.
You're technically ready to jump in at any of those parts.
Yeah. No.
Like how many times have you tried to sing all 3 parts at once anyway?
Right. No, I mean, it's so. And actually that would be another question I have real quickly is just, what do you do when you try to like part sing, for instance, and
so you falls on its face.
Sing, and then you have the alto sing, and then you have them sing together, and then nothing happens.
Yeah, ask them did that sound good to you? Okay, what sounded really good? Okay, what didn't?
Asking questions.
What can I give you to do again? Oh, what would you like to do again? Do you want to come lead it? I'll stand right beside you. Okay, cool. You lead your sopranos. Okay, keep singing it. Do it again. Don't stop. All right, keep doing. We're going to see if we can get the altos in for 4 notes. Ready? Altos, here we go. So making it more of a trial and error process. Okay, I'll tell you a secret, and hopefully none of the guys are listening. So four guys in our guys' little small ensemble, like a quartet, on purpose. One is in the middle of the voice change with like 2 or 3 notes per week different. One, no
Oh,
change, so stinking proud to be able to sing all the high notes. The other one has changed and is 100% a tenor, but thinks that they're still in the change because they want to be a bass. And then the other one is nearing the end. So they have all the high notes and all of those extra low notes, but nothing in the middle. Right. Okay. So we picked out this song, the Alleluia song from Shrek. And it was literally trial and error. Like, first we sang through it all together and like, man, we sound great, because I picked a great track for them to sing to. Like, never underestimate the power of a like guitar track when you're just trying to get your guys singing. Yes, I could have sat at the piano and played it, but when the guitar track is playing, they feel like they're karaoke jamming and they think they are rock stars. And Lord above, that's all I want for them right now. This process.
That's right. Just for a moment. Everybody
so
wants
we
to
sing it all the way through, and I'm like, okay, so really this range isn't great for my 3-note Wonder Man. Okay, so I'm like, all right, we're going to do it this way. So-and-so with the middle range missing. You're going to open and sing the opening phrase as a solo. And then my high voice is going to sing with my, I only have a couple notes because they're A, best friends, and B, they have the support of each other that sound like they're singing the, manly part. Well, we sing that, and then this other voice, you'll jump in for the second solo line. So we do it, and it's okay. It's not the best. But because Mr. 3-Note Wonder can't do it. So you have to keep experimenting. We ended up singing that song, per their request, 6 times. Have you ever had a group of guys say, one more time? Okay, sure.
True that. No, yeah. Oh, that's great. No, I love that you didn't take like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Let's see what else we can do, And as I'm trying to teach my kids, like, sing, so that and even with our little Forbidden Pattern song and how we cheer for those who come out and do it, because if you fail, that means you're participating, and we cheer for you. And I am trying to transfer that. But I do think my wanting to swoop in and save them and make everything packaged up real nice is not sending the right message, No,
they can still, failure in itself is a learning curve. Failure is a response. Failure is a, not a stimulus, but it is something to help.
Yeah, well, it drives you in a way, that isn't, and I like to give lots of pleasantries, I mean, I just want my kids to feel like $1 million, but I do realize the power in, and I think you said it great, Emmy, and Chris does this tons, Chris Muntz in his teaching, is questions. What did you think about this? What would you like to do again? As opposed to me coming out and, offering all these suggestions.
How could you have done that better? What would you like to do to get that part better?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that is something I can take away and do this week, is just like student leaders, bringing them up and then asking questions that get kids talking. They are wonderful people, aren't they? These children that we work with, they're people in training. I was just telling somebody that, and we want to teach them in these safe places how to fail and how to pick back up again and try, and how to laugh at it, I just think there's such value in that. I think that's probably a good place to even leave it. I don't need to tell you anything else.
You have provided us with so many great resources, and I'll make sure we get this in the notes somehow. I've really enjoyed seeing all of your successes and your struggles and your questions, and thank you for asking. You make me feel so important all the time.
Oh, well, you're just more seasoned. Let's face it, you're more experienced. And so, yes, I do feel like your knowledge is something that has been so welcome in my world. It just really, really helped me. So thank you.
So before we go, you get the question that you already know so well. I almost want you to record the outro, because I'm pretty sure you'd say something like, you matter. What's the one thing that really matters that you want the listener to walk away with?
Yeah, I really struggled with this because your guests have been so poignant in their ability to say one thing that really matters. And so forgive me if I kind of struggle to put into words this, but it's something along the lines of, this work is so challenging, but it's the challenge that makes it so rewarding. And the kids are worth every bit of the struggle. As a teacher, we're constantly trying to get our kids to be brave, to show courage, to be kind to themselves and to others, to be curious, to learn more. And yet, as a teacher, as a new teacher, I have been so discouraged by my inability to do all of these things. And so somewhere along the line, it just has kind of hit me that it's the hard that is the great about it, and to not be discouraged by the challenge, but instead be invigorated by it and be so grateful that what we are doing is so important and that it is worth it, and that I can get better, and better. And that is very encouraging. My ceiling doesn't have to stay where it is right now. I can just keep on rolling on. Apparently by just having less of me. So if I could just figure that out, it would be great. So yeah, that's it. The work is challenging, but that is also what makes it absolutely rewarding. And the kids are worth every bit of the struggle.
Amen. Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Emmy.
What was your favorite quote from this one? I loved, "Our voices need to be played with." I also love how Michelle comes to this conversation purely, passionately loving the singers in her classroom. Yes, this is hard work, y'all. And it is such a fine line between what works and experimenting to find out what might even work better. But ultimately, we have the coolest job. We get to be there for the singers and the students in our classrooms, even if they don't want to be in choir, or even if they don't want to participate in music. We get to be there for them, to help them develop those life skills necessary for a full and abundant life. As we've heard a couple weeks ago from Dr. Philip Schultz, you never know what is going on in their lives outside of your classroom, and you have the power to impact that one moment. I hope that as we've gone through some of these stories with Michelle, that you've taken some notes and you have some fun things you can't wait to try out in your classroom this week. Pew, pew, pew. Those are a couple. I also want to do the side, 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 up, down, up, down. I'm so excited for that. Anyway, whatever you're doing right now, you really, really matter. We all know that music matters, especially music education. And I'll see you next time on the Music Ed Matters podcast.